Jam Session is a podcast where two guys who grew up in Dallas-Fort Worth discuss sports, craft beer, life, and their experiences living in one of America's most vibrant cities. If you love sports, you're going to love this show. If you love craft beer or you're curious about it, you'll love this show. Great conversations with good friends is what Jam Session is all about.
Welcome. It's nice to have you here. I hope you enjoy it. I think you will.
You're listening to the Jam Session Podcast.
I was told that I could listen to the radio at a reasonable volume.
With Cowboys insider...
What's your name?
Jean-Jacques Taylor.
That's my name.
Radio personality and craft beer expert, Matt McCarthy.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot. Comes from upbringing.
And now, the Jam Session Podcast. It is indeed Jam Session. Subscribe, rate, and review, and hang out with us for a while. Right here on the Jam Session Podcast. The moment we've been waiting for has arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, the radio, TV, and now podcast superstar, the sexy Jean-Jacques Taylor.
What up, Doc?
I would be the non-sexy one, Matt McCarthy, and this is Jam Session, the podcast, version 33, asking simply that you prepare to be dazzled,
if not entertained.
And of course, we always start you off talking about some of our fantastic sponsors. We appreciate everything that they do to help make this possible. So please support them as they support us. Let's tell you about our buddy Aaron and HFX Foundation Solutions. Full service foundation repair company. They can take care of you wherever you are in DFW, specializing in slab, pier, and beam foundation repair. Of course, they can also take care of your drainage and gutter installations. And these are the things, and we've talked about this, Jacques. I think we all know this, the signs that you might have a problem. Like if you see cracks in your floors or your ceiling, sticking doors, the sloped floors, windows, soil washout, all these different things that cause concern. It's kind of like your body, right? Like you go, man, something's not right. I need to go to the doctor. And they go, wow, good thing you came in earlier. This isn't going to be a problem. And then you wait, you're like, I'm fine. And then you go in and like, whoa, man, we're going to have to, this is not good. Foundation's the same way.
I think that's the exact way to approach it, man. It's always better to be safe than sorry, because once it's sorry, partner, you better hope your insurance is up there.
Yes, exactly. And they do say, look, if you have any concerns, give them a call because they'll come out and do a free inspection to work with you to see what the deal may be. 817-770-0174. HFX Foundation Solutions, A-rated with the Better Business Bureau. You can check them out online at hfxfoundation.com. Doesn't have to cost a fortune, but if you wait too long, there's a risk. So call them today or check them out online, HFX Foundation Solutions. That's hfxfoundation.com. And of course, our good friends at Blue Star Motor Group, they've got another one to tell you about this week. That 2016 Lexus RX 450 hybrid. And I mean, this is the kind of car that is loaded. All-wheel drive, Carfax certified, just one owner. A 12/12 powertrain warranty, panoramic roof, heated and cooled seats, heated steering wheel, navigation, blind spot monitoring, lane assist, a backup camera, all of this for $29,449 at Blue Star Motor Group. You can see it online at bluestarmotorgroup.com. They've got a great Instagram. You can see the car. You can see all their cars, all their inventory, their pricing. It is a local family-owned business, which you know we like. We love local, so support these guys as they support us at bluestarmotorgroup.com.
And I got to tell you, Matt, if you've never had heated seats, you've never lived, brother.
I never have. I think I've only been in one car that had like the cooled seats. And I was like, man, what is that? And I realized that it was air coming up through the seat. I was like, wow, this is weird. They're like, yeah, isn't it great? And I got to say, man, especially in Texas, the heated seats is one thing, but the cooled seats is even better because, I mean, we know how it is in the summer in Texas. You get in, you don't want to touch anything in your car. And the cooled seats, man, in the summer, that is a game changer.
For sure.
It is pretty awesome. Also, a reminder, and we're going to tell you about this a couple of times, but we want to have a good turnout. We'd love to meet some of you guys and see you guys at Legal Draft Brewing on Saturday. We are recording this on December 15th, so keep that in mind. But coming up on Saturday, this Saturday, it is December 19th, we will be at Legal Draft Brewing in Arlington doing a live show at 3 o'clock. So come on out. They're offering a flight special, so you get to try a few of their beers, the little 4-ounce pours. We're going to do a flight together, $8 for the flight, which is absolutely, like, when I saw that, they're like, is that good? I was like, is that good? Are you kidding me? If I normally went to breweries and they offered $8 flights, I would have to turn in my car and just take Uber everywhere.
Dude, I paid $8 for a beer last night.
I've never... $8, you just don't see $8 flights. That's like when you go to these random rinky-dink cities that you'll travel to and you go to some random brewery and you're like, an $8 flight? What the hell is that? You don't see that in Texas. So an $8 flight, man, that is a great deal. And we're excited to be out there on Saturday, December 19th at 3 o'clock. We're going to have our shirts, so we'll have those for sale. You can pick one of those up for $20 and come on out and say, hey, man, we'd love to say hi to you guys and thank all of you for supporting us.
Yeah, it's gonna be a blast, and it's the good thing about it is it's Saturday. And check this out, I'm keeping it real with y'all. We're already at a brewery, so Matt is not going to be in a big hurry to rush off right afterwards.
That's very true.
And then we're just gonna hang, man, and watch some college football.
Yeah.
SEC game comes on at 7. The Big Ten game should be ending right about 2. I'll be there right after that. And then it's just about watching the ACC, Notre Dame, and talking sports.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be there for a bit, drinking some beer, hanging out. It's going to be a great day on Saturday, so come on out and make that happen. But as we get into the conversation here for this version of the podcast, I thought it was interesting, and I have to say, man, I heard first Steven yesterday, I think it was, on Monday, and then Jerry this morning on Tuesday morning, and they both, and I just wondered, because look, the players and the owners and everybody associated with the Cowboys, they listen to things, they read things, they come across things. It's not like they don't ever have any idea about what's going on. And I just wondered if they read your article and the things they were saying was almost like a direct shot at you about Mike McCarthy. And, well, I can't believe anybody would suggest that Mike McCarthy wouldn't be our coach next year.
Well, let me put it like this.
Yes.
It was in the Dallas Morning News. I got all choked up thinking about it. It's on the Dallas Morning News website. So they saw it because they read everything that's in the Dallas Morning News. I'm not saying that their comments by any stretch were built around what I said. I think they're aware of it. And when asked about it, they had their rebuttals to whatever the stuff I said. And so I know for a fact, again, I've been doing this thing for 25 years. They respect what I have to say, even if they don't agree with it. And so that's why I said it was in the Morning News. I know they saw it. They see everything. We can all have a difference of opinion.
We can have a difference of opinion, but I thought the idea that they thought it was the silliest thing they've ever heard, that why in the world would anybody suggest that? It just goes to tell you what this franchise is all about, which is the image, the brand. We didn't make a mistake. We would never be wrong, rather than what we can all see of going, look, this is not working. We have seen franchises before say, okay, we obviously made a mistake doing this. Let's go ahead and take care of it and get somebody else in here because this isn't going to go the way we needed it to. Not the Cowboys. The Cowboys, oh, what are you talking? Why would you think that we have done something wrong? We're the Joneses.
And see, to me, that's the bigger. I'm like you, like everybody. I mean, if you paid attention, you knew Mike McCarthy's coming back. I mean, the whole piece that I wrote said they should fire him, but they're not going to. So they should do this. But I'm like you, man. I read those comments from Steven, and I was like, you're really surprised that people are asking about this? Really? Like, really? You're surprised? And it's the same old stuff, man. Well, you know, the injuries and the pandemic we've had. Dog, everybody's dealing with the pandemic, man. Pandemic ain't stopped the Chiefs from going 12-1. Well, they haven't had the injuries we've had. Okay, other teams have had injuries, man. Y'all ain't the only team that's been hurt. So when the surprise that anybody would even raise the issue that, again, this was not supposed to be the 1960 Cowboys or the 1989 Cowboys. This was supposed to be a championship contender. And I'm just going to tell it to you like this, Matt. The more you think about what Mike McCarthy did with this defense, it's really a fireable offense, man. There's no positive you can bring from this defense. It ain't made nobody better. It's actually done the worst, made people worse. And then the fact, so, when you talk about, see, this is why I get frustrated with the Jones boys. Okay, you going to look at this scheme and tell me it's made people better? You're smart men, so you either lying because you're not dumb. You're smart men, so that's just a lie because you don't want people to see bad. But then secondly, man, the fact that Mike McCarthy, 3 months into the season, can't get guys to play hard. And, I mean, even the comments after the game, oh, that's the way you're supposed to run to the ball, and we just really didn't want any more questions about effort. Really, y'all? I mean, really? It's 3 games left. Y'all been playing like this all year, and people been calling you out for it. So they don't respond to Mike McCarthy. See, I never say fire the coach, Matt, until I believe the coach is the fundamental reason why you're losing or why you're not doing what you should be. Because otherwise it's about the players. But, dude, I can't see anything that he contributes right now. As I told y'all, hey, Matt, he don't coach the offense. He don't coach the defense. He don't coach the special teams. And he don't motivate nobody. What the hell does he do, bro?
I don't know what the answer is to that, other than make mistakes and take this thing that was mediocre last year and make it worse. And yes, the injuries come into play, and you lost your starting quarterback, and I get that. But again, it's excuses after excuses, and this idea. I mean, the Jerry quote that it's ridiculous, that he's never dreamt of it. It's never even been a thought in his mind. It just goes to show you, in a sense, how they can do no wrong. And it goes back to the conversations that we've had multiple times about this really being about the brand, and it's not driven specifically by winning as much as it is about the brand and butts and seats. And I came across a Cole Beasley quote earlier, I think it was in The Athletic or something, about Buffalo and the success that they're having this year. And he talked about how he's glad to be where it's 100% about football and not a show or a brand. It's pure here. I'm proud to be a part of something like that, about the culture in Buffalo versus the culture in Dallas. Now, maybe, look, you could say, well, that's Cole Beasley. He's just pissed because they didn't want him here anymore. But I think there's a lot of truth to what he has to say about that, where you go to other places and it's not necessarily about that butts and seat motto that the Cowboys seem to be so driven by.
He's right, because it's probably what's the word I'm looking for? It's probably as big a polar opposite as it can be, Dallas to Buffalo. Like, the owners in Buffalo ain't talking to the media on a regular day.
Right.
I promise you that the owner in Buffalo, the team owner in Buffalo, doesn't have a radio show. You know what I'm saying? So it's completely different. In Buffalo, it's about football. Now, that's one reason why Buffalo is not one of the most valuable sports franchises in sports. It's not about, the margarita of the Bills and the buffalo wing sauce of the Bills. It's not about none of that. You know what I mean? It's just about, can we win some football games, because they've been bad for a long time. But it's also a small market, and the players don't live there in the offseason. So it's hard to compare the two. But when you're talking about football culture, there's no comparison.
No,
one is probably 99% football, and one is probably 50-50.
And that's where sometimes I think part of the problem that is developing here, and it's just become this, it's almost just like a monotonous glaze that we all wander around in as Cowboys fans.
Can I tell you something, man? You made me think about this. I wrote a piece recently in The Undefeated, and it's about the Jackson State athletic director, Ashley Robinson. And you're like, what the hell has that got to do with this? Okay, then let me tell you. Jackson State in the 60s and 70s, dominant football team, college football team, HBCU football team, historically black college university. Walter Payton School, all right? And then they went through a 20-year stretch that they're currently in, which is why Deion Sanders got hired, where they haven't won more than 8 games, okay? And their athletic director said when he got the job 2 years ago, he said, we've been winning, we've been operating our business with the community and everybody else the same way we did 20 years ago when we were winning championships. Mm-hmm. We can't operate like that anymore because we're not that university anymore. We don't have that cachet. We can't do business the way we used to because we don't perform the way we used to. And that made me think about the Cowboys. They're still operating mentally as though they're the early 90 Cowboys. They're winning championships and had cachet and did all of these great things. And they're really not. And until they change their approach with that, they're going to continue to struggle because they never see the world as it is. They see it as they want it to be.
Yeah, and that's where they're at right now in Dallas. And who knows, man? All we know is that Mike McCarthy, 100%, which we all thought anyway, is going to be back. I still cannot possibly imagine that they look at everything that has happened this year and don't have some sort of a change on the staff. But then I wonder if they really have this giant belief in Mike McCarthy, if they just... My fear is that they're going to look at this season as a mulligan season because of everything that happened and went on and use those excuses and say, well, let's see what happens if Dak is here and we don't have the injuries. If Mike McCarthy says, hey, I know it was tough, but I want to keep Mike Nolan. I believe in what he's doing. And they just say, okay. And there's no changes at all.
The thing about it is, man, I believe a lot of that. They just have to take, it always frustrates me because they very rarely take a realistic view of the world. And when you lie to yourself about the circumstance that you're in, all that does is create more problems because you haven't addressed your real issues. And so my wish for the Cowboys is that they stop lying to themselves.
Well, good luck with that because it feels like they've been doing that for years and years and years. At some point, you just start to believe in the delusion, don't you? And then you don't even realize that you're lying because to you, that's a truth.
No, you're exactly right on that, man.
And that's where this franchise is. And that is why they have struggled to have any real tangible success. And we've painted that picture throughout the last couple of years in doing the show together, whether it was on the radio or the podcast, of exactly where this franchise is, especially in the last 25 years. We have literally explained the picture and given the information that this franchise is closer to the Clevelands and Detroits and Washingtons of the world than it is to the Pittsburghs and New Englands and Seattles of the world. That's just a fact in the last 2 decades plus of where this franchise is. But what happens is, I think Jerry looks at his Hall of Fame jacket. He looks at his 3 rings. They walk into the building every day past 5 Super Bowl trophies, and that's the type of franchise they think they are. And so they believe that delusion, even though all of us are going, what the hell are you guys thinking? You're wrong.
No, I think that's a good way to put it. And until you change that, man, you just repeat the same mistakes.
So as we continue with you here on the podcast, let's tell you about, of course, and you guys know it by now, one of our great sponsors is the wings from Kroger. At most Kroger stores, I'm not going to say all. I think some of you have found a few of the stores that don't carry them. But again, if you want to try these wings, and we encourage you to do so, and you go to your local Kroger and they don't have them, ask the meat manager. God, what a nice title that must be. I'm the meat manager. I manage meat. But ask the meat manager guy. They're available. Other Krogers have them. Please get the wings in this store. And then hopefully they will take care of that for you. But they're fantastic. My friends are buying them. I know you get them all the time. I get them on a regular basis. There's no breading. It's meat and flavor. Mango habanero, buffalo blue cheese. You get them at Kroger. You go back to the meat guy, and hopefully they have them in the window. You say, wrap me up a couple of pounds. I've seen them on the George Foreman grill. I've seen them on my grill. You do an air fryer. There's a variety of ways. I saw somebody sent me a picture. They did them like in a skillet on their stove.
Really? I tell you how I did them last week when my son crushed them. I was doing a lot of multitasking, and so I actually stuck them in the oven, put them on broil for about 33 minutes, flipped them at about 20. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's how you do it. There's a variety of ways. And that's what's so great about meat and flavor only. You decide how you want to enjoy them. The wings at Kroger, mango habanero, or buffalo blue cheese. But let's jump into the block, shall we? Because we've got some interesting stories here for this daily edition of the block. First off, I saw this and I thought, and I understand, and this is a weird story to me because I understand both sides of it. And that is the story of the kid who ran up a $16,000 credit card bill in 1 month. He's a 6-year-old kid who charged $16,000 to his mom's credit card playing.
Okay, hold tight. Okay. I just have a question for you. Before we get into the $16,000 credit card story, because it's true, did you believe 100% of the mom's story?
No, because unless you just live with your head in the sand, or you are a colossal moron, then, which I don't think based on some of her other comments that she is.
Yeah.
But what happened was this kid's playing, and we all know this. My son plays games, and I'm always like, okay, what is it? And I read about it. I make sure, and he knows very well, you're not ever hitting buy on anything. Like, I will rip your arm off, and then you'll never be able to touch the buy button again. But he always does this because even the free games, you have to have, like, it has to have my thumbprint or my face, obviously, to download it because I'm the one that unlocks it. And so then I look at it and I talk to him and I say, okay, what is it? And I make sure it's appropriate and all that. And then I say, well, it says there's stuff to buy in here. And I remind him, remember, do not purchase anything. Make sure that I have it. And then even then, if he were to buy something, I have to give my thumbprint or my face for it to go through. Now, that being said, that's what's interesting about this. So this kid runs up a $16,000 credit card bill playing some Sonic game on the iPhone. And we all know this. Oh, I want to have more lives, or I want this to go faster, or I want this extra power, whatever it is. 99 cents here, 99 cents there. I can buy a whole bunch of gold coins for $100, $99.99. I'll just buy 5 $99.99 packages, whatever. And so apparently this kid was doing that, and the mom didn't realize it. She thought it was fraud, that somebody like, oh my God, who's charging my credit card? So she calls her credit card company, and they go and do a lot of this research and look into it. I mean, $16,000 is a huge amount. It's not like they just go, hey, we'll take care of it.
Right.
So they do this research thing. It takes a while. They come back to her and said, it's from you. Like, somebody on your account is doing this. And she goes, oh my. And so she realized it must be my son, and she figures it out. It's her son. She then calls Apple and goes, look, I had no idea this was happening. And Apple goes, hey, basically,
sucks for you.
Yeah, tough shit. You know what? There are restrictions that you can place on your phone or your iPad, like parental restrictions that allow this to be even impossible. And then they tell her 60 days has gone by and you didn't report this at all. She goes back and says, well, my credit card company, I thought it was fraud and all this. And so now Apple is refusing to do anything about it, saying, well, you owe us the $16,000 because that's what you charged. Now, a couple of thoughts. My first one is, I understand both sides. Obviously the Apple, you look at it and go, hey, man, like I said, tough shit, sucks for you, whatever. And I get it from the parental perspective to some degree, because a lot of parents, and this is, I mean, a very expensive parental lesson for her, but I just wonder if this is a unique thing. Now, if this is happening and Apple's getting 500 things like this a day, okay. But if this is a unique situation, and for Apple, especially in this time period that we're going through, Apple's a multi-billion dollar company. What do they care about 16,000? I mean, why not say, hey, you know what? A mistake. Instead of a $16,000 lesson, we're going to make it a $500 lesson. Give us that and we'll call it even.
Yeah. Well, okay. There's a couple things I'm going to hit on. Number one, this is just your boy not talking. She didn't go high enough up the Apple food chain.
Right.
Like, if you need to write, y'all take this all down. Say this happens to you, and you're like, well, how do I ever get to the head of Apple? Send the head of Apple a certified letter.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's how you get to somebody. It's just like anybody else. When the IRS wants you, they send it certified. Like, I want to make sure you got this. So you send it certified. But that's one way to do it. But yeah, she didn't go high enough up the food chain. I learned this lesson myself on a much, 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 much lower level. And I'm going to tell y'all, this is the other thing you should do. And I don't even know if Matt does this, but you should do it if you don't. Now, let me preface this by saying, I'm that person who hates notifications. I hate them because if you got a certain number of apps, if you don't turn off your notifications, you'll be getting notifications like every 30 seconds from somebody or something. So I got all my notifications essentially turned off, except which ones, Matt? I get notifications for every credit card I have.
Right.
When there's a purchase made on a credit card, I don't care if it's $1.25 for some water at 7-Eleven. I get a notification. And then, if I know I did it, I don't worry about it. I don't check it. But if I don't, or my son has been somewhere, what is it? What is this? Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. It's good. And that way, I don't get anything that sneaks up on me on the credit card thing. And frankly, dude, I checked something the other day on my credit card, Matt. It was a recurring $33 purchase, and it had been down for 2 months. I sent to Beverly Rain a screenshot. I go, yo, what is this? She goes, I don't know. So she called the company. She goes, it's coming up from your company. I go, really? So I called it and looked it up, and it was a classic thing of one of those things I was supposed to cancel.
Ah, yeah.
And the day, I remember, because once I figured out what it was, I remember the exact moment I did it, something happened, and it was the day I went and had a colonoscopy, and so I was running late, and so I ran out the door, and I forgot to plug it in my phone to say cancel this after a week. But the fact that I have notifications is why it only went for 1 extra month as opposed to like a year or 2.
Which is a good thing, yeah.
Yeah, so put notifications for all your credit cards so that when your kid runs up a $16,000 bill, you catch it at the first,
Well,
$50.
and look, like I said, and I get it because apparently Apple told her, there's a setting for that. There's preventative measures and all these. And she says that she didn't know. That's why she didn't have them set up. She didn't know about them. And again, I don't know what device is out there today. And to me, you may have to set it up to not have this, to where you can just make purchases on your phone without having to click. Now, Amazon, obviously, you don't have to do a thumb or anything, but I know, and maybe I did set this up this way, but I know like anything I buy through the Apple Store, it either has to have my thumbprint or the Face ID. Otherwise, it won't go through. Like, you can't just do it without me. And maybe I did set it up that way a while back because of my son, and he plays on my iPad and stuff a lot when we're out and about. And perhaps I did that, but to act like, she's 41 years old. I'm 41 years old. So she grew up in the same time period as me. To act like you had no idea, then part of that is bad parenting because you're not paying attention to what your kids are doing enough to look at this and say, okay, you're just giving him it and saying, here, play this, instead of reading about it and finding out what is the information on this game. Oh, wow, that's interesting. I see here that there's multiple things that you can purchase in this game. Man, I better make sure that my kid doesn't just accidentally. Do you not think that? I don't know. Who knows? Because again, a lot of parents will just give their kids whatever or put them in front of something and be like, hey, watch this. Wow, you're watching porn. How'd that happen?
No, I think it's you just have to be very aware. Like I have it, and I'm like you. I've had a lot of talks with my dude, and then I had the final talk. Because I forget it was something very similar though. But I was like, dude, you got one more time to do this, man, and it's a wrap for you. And then for a long time, I wouldn't let him do anything that required money. Like figure a way around it, dog.
Yeah.
Now that leads me to this, Matt. What's the most money you've ever done as a kid in a situation like that cost your parents some money in some way, shape, or form?
See, I don't know, because again, and you're the same way. It just was never that easy. I was trying to think of what it would have cost.
Oh.
I just don't know because I never did anything. To be fair, there were a couple of times where I probably could have caused a serious situation where, I could have caused my family to be sued or have to pay damages or something, but it never happened that I'm aware of anyway. I hope not. But outside of that, I don't know what it would be other than just growing up and, the different whatnot that you come across. I would imagine it wasn't fun for my parents to have to pay for a couple of the surgeries that I had when I was younger, like when I broke my face playing hockey and I had to have reconstructive nasal surgery. That wasn't cheap. I'm sure they weren't like, oh, kick ass. Glad we got to pay for this.
Well, I've got a story for you, Matt. I can't remember if I've told you this before, but maybe some of you guys haven't heard it. But when I tell you, Matt, you'll either remember it or you won't. Do you remember the $1,000 phone bill?
I don't know. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes.
So it's the Well, I'll tell it quickly. So it's
I forgot
now
about
Matt's
that.
got to laugh. So it's the summer of 1981, and it's the summer of 1982. I'm going into my sophomore year, and every summer from the time my parents got divorced when I was about 6, literally, and I've told y'all this, my mom would send me and my sister from Dallas to either Cincinnati or Columbus, whichever city my dad was living in at the time. Every summer, nonstop. That was their divorce agreement. And we would return literally the Friday before school starts. So we spent 3 solid months every summer. No problem, no worries. This is the first summer I've got a girlfriend, like a real girlfriend, like one that you kiss on and feel on and stuff like that.
Nice. That's fun.
You know, and we've been going together. That's what the kids called it back then.
Yep.
Since October. Okay, that's a long time, dog. 6 months in a kid's life. Hey, Mom, I ain't really interested in going to Columbus this summer. You know, I got my girl here. I'm working. You know, I'm good. Nah, you need to go. Not realizing my mother used the summer to have all her friends together and party like she was a single person. And so she said, hey, just go for half the summer and then I'll bring you back. Now, I'm not really down with that, Matt, but I'll go, okay, I got you. So y'all know what happened. We get close to the midway point of the summer. Hey, Mom, when am I coming back? What's my ticket? When you got me coming back? Oh, well, I mean, it's half the summer's gone. You might as well stay the other half. Oh, y'all lied to me. You had no intention of bringing me back. So, Matt, I started calling my girlfriend. And, hey, y'all need to understand, wasn't no cell phones. You got to pick up the phone and call long distance.
Yep.
We was calling in the middle of the day. We was watching General Hospital together, man, for an hour. And I knew there was some cost involved, but I didn't really know how much the cost was. And so the bill finally comes, because I didn't start this till the middle of the summer. The bill finally comes, and I'm getting the mail because my dad's at work. I get the mail every day. I put it in. And I see the bill there, and I go, I should probably just check it just to see what it's going to be. Because I have no real concept of money at 14. The bill is $1,000, Matt. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I said shit.
Oh, I bet you did. Yeah, that's where you just leave home and you figure, well, better off on my own than taking my chances with Dad.
So, dude, I took some of the pages out of the bill like that was going to make a difference. And I put the bill back, and my dad gets home that evening, and all I hear is, Jacques!
Dude.
And I go downstairs, the f*** are you doing, man? And he's going off. And, I'm just sitting there taking it, 'cause, I mean, what can I say? And finally, he said, so he tells me to go up to my room, and we're talking, and he brings me back down later. And he put together, Matt, it's got to be one of the top 5 punishments of all time, which is why I remember it today. The punishment, Matt, was 1, you can't leave your room anymore during the summer. You're stuck in your room for the rest of the summer, which was like about a month. I need a 10-page paper. My dad's a college professor. On why you did what you did. I need you to go to the mall downtown and find all the stuff you could buy for $1,000. I need you to write 1,000 times, I will not use the phone without permission. You can't watch TV until the new year.
Man.
And I think that was the punishment. And to end the story, I ended up having a lot of my punishment reprieved because I wrote, I've always been a writer, Matt. I wrote a fascinating paper on how I was at fault for making the phone calls, but I would have never made the phone calls if my parents hadn't lied to me and tricked me into coming up here for the summer. So you bear some responsibility for my evil ways. And I remember after my dad had calmed down in a couple of days, he was like, he's having his father's son. He's like, you can't do that, man, blah, 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 blah. He says, man, I would have flown the girl up here. She could have stayed with us.
That's true. For
a week or two. Or she could have stayed. He had one of his best friends was a woman. It was strictly platonic. He's like, she could have stayed at Vicky's house, and y'all could have hung out all day, and then she go spend the night at Vicky's house because Vicky lived down the street. We could have done a lot of things, man. That would have been better than spending $1,000 talking on the phone.
Man, that is the truth.
And just so y'all know, I did the inflation calculator. $1,000 in 1982 is the equivalent of $2,700 in 2019.
Holy cow, man.
That put in perspective. Imagine if you got a $2,700 phone bill.
Nope. That's just, I'm done. That's it. I'm out. Yeah, I always wondered, I think just being me has probably cost my parents money from time to time where they had to swoop in and be like, well, let's try to help you out a little bit and all that, which has always been great because my parents have been so supportive of me and everything that I've done in my life, which is great. But I know that I don't know that I ever racked up a phone bill. I never had a wreck when I was a kid or anything like that. So other than just doing stupid stuff and I would get hurt or break a bone or get cut or whatever, and that I'm sure that was always irritating. And I remember like when I first was older and had to get a new pair of glasses and I texted my dad and I was like, man, thanks so much for buying me glasses. I didn't realize what a damn beating a pair of glasses is. It'll cost, for the exam and then new glasses and frames and lenses. It's not cheap. And I remember as a kid, when I first started wearing glasses in 4th grade, I probably broke my glasses once a year on accident. I'd leave them somewhere and step on them or whatever. And I'm sure I think at one point that pissed my dad off. Like, I'm tired of buying these damn glasses all the time. Take better care of them. So just little silly things like that, I would imagine. So we go from that story of the $16,000 credit card bill to a quick one here. Because once again, I always think this is interesting because there's all these weird random websites and whatnot that come out with, these are the best cities in America to live in or whatnot. And I could have sworn that we talked about something like this like a month or two ago. But there's a new one out from something called Smart Asset, which has named 2 North Texas cities as the most livable places in North Texas. In the country. And they're in North Texas. And one of those, checking in at number 5, which I'm sure this doesn't surprise anybody, is Plano. And it's one of those things like walkability and things to do and how much a house costs in ratio to your income. And in Plano, it costs like 22% of your income to live in Plano. And then once again, I'm telling you, Irving, the underrated city of the area, has been named the 19th most livable city in America. And these are the top 100 most populated cities, by the way. So the 19th most livable place in America, based on all these range of factors, is Irving, Texas.
Really? Your spot. Yes. Your city. The place you claim.
Yeah, and I don't know why that always surprises me, because I obviously enjoy living here, but I don't know, because you always hear so much about Allen and McKinney and Frisco and Plano and a variety of different places around the area, and it just seems like you don't really hear a lot about Irving.
I don't know why. I don't know what. I guess the Toyota Music Center is a big draw, but I don't know what. It used to be the Mustangs of Las Colinas.
Right.
I think Irving. This is just me now. I just think Irving lost a lot of cachet, perhaps, when the Cowboys left. Because for a while it was jumping, with especially with the Las Colinas area. Other places have become, I think, a little bit more the place to be than Irving.
Well, apparently not, man, because it continues. That's a variety of different lists that we have found that Irving is popping up as one of the most livable or best places to live, not just in the area, but according to this thing called Smart Asset, Plano and Irving, 2 of the top 20 most livable places in the country, and they were the only 2. There's only 4 cities in Texas that made it. One of them was Laredo, and the other one was El Paso. What? I was like, El Paso? You guys nuts?
I get El Paso before Laredo.
Yeah, I know.
Really, what are we talking about with Laredo?
Who wants to live in Laredo?
Nobody.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, but apparently we're wrong. No. I'm just saying, according to this,
the city chamber of commerce paid for that.
And so they did. This is a ranking with evaluations on unemployment rate, crime statistics, walkability, and housing costs as a percentage of income. And that's why Plano and Irving were so high on the list, because according to Smart Asset, they say people choose where to live on based on availability of jobs, location of family, weather, But there's other things that they qualify, and I just told you what they were, as livability, and that's one of the reasons, because of those factors, why Plano and Irving are considered such desirable, livable places. So good for those cities, I suppose. And once again, as we like to do every week here with us on Jam Session, let's check in with our ESPN Cowboys insider, Todd Archer, who is, of course, brought to you by Blue Star Motor Group. You can check them out. Superior quality, Carfax certified pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models. That's Blue Star Motor Group at bluestarmotorgroup.com. And Todd, look, I don't know what we make of the win over Cincinnati. Yeah, it seemed like a blowout. It maybe at times, even late, felt like it was going to be closer than it was. But what does this mean moving forward for Dallas, for the future, for a win like this? Does this show improvement in this team like we've seen from some of the other teams, even in their own division, whether it's the Giants or Washington? What does this mean when you look forward to the future?
I get when this season ends and they're going to be whatever they're going to be, 5-11, 4-12, 6-10, whatever it is. Remember how NFL films, they do those end of the year things, and they could make like even the worst teams say, look like there's something that they're building for the future.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're building right now, other than hoping that Tyron Smith comes back and his injury past is done. Here's a guy who's not played a full season in 5 years now.
Yeah.
That La'el Collins will come back and his hip will be fine. Dak will come back if they tag him, sign him, whatever, and he'll be the same guy. Blake Jarwin off the ACL, like we're just saying, oh, it's only an ACL, he'll be back and be fine. Well, I mean, they're still going to, and that whatever defense they're running next year, they're going to have the same built-in excuse. Well, it was the first year with the new defense, or it's the same defense that they've been running this year that was terrible. Like, it's just, I don't know. There's a part of me that wonders, just, isn't it better to make a mistake too early than a mistake too late in some of these cases with how they're doing things?
It's interesting to me because, as you pointed out, some of the excuses it seems like they've been making throughout the course of the season, and it's just become another season of excuses in an era with the, whether it's fair or not, with Dak and Zeke of the last 5 years, that year in and year out it seems to be the, oh, well, this happened. Oh, well, if that hadn't happened. And there's these various excuses. They finally get rid of Garrett. They try it with the new staff. And yes, they've had a lot of injuries, but the guys that have been there that are healthy seem like they've regressed in some cases. And you just wonder, maybe this core collection that they thought they had something with is just not good enough.
Absolutely. And you know who else we have to blame for that? And not that we're on the payroll or anything. Blame us. Because What do we do every training camp? Oh, my gosh, this is as deep a roster as we've seen the Cowboys have. Yeah, they look really good when they practice against each other. Like, you better look good in those situations. Like, I think we have a tendency to overrate these players. Then it frames how we're asking questions, which frames the national narrative on things. And obviously, there's national guys that love the Cowboys because they know what it generates for business opportunities and for to generate ratings and all that kind of stuff. So they overrate the Cowboys, and then once they fall apart, they can come back and say, what an overrated mess the Dallas Cowboys are. Wait a minute. In September, you said Jerry put together a great roster. What are you talking about? So that's the stuff that kind of bugs me. Like, but I do think ultimately, though, not that what we say or write or talk about impacts the season. I do think there's a level of denial at the Star with what they put together. And the people, Jerry likes to talk to people outside the building to get vantage points of his roster. Well, if you're Jerry Jones's friend, and we know Bill Polian's one of them, I assume Bill, he's a truth teller. He's not a guy who's going to sugarcoat things. But if you're one of Jerry's guys, are you going to tell Jerry, nah, man, your roster's terrible? Of course you're not going to do that. You're going to say, oh, Jerry, yeah, you put together he did a great job, Jerry. Of course. I mean, so that's what he hears from a lot of people across the league that he deals with that tells him, man, Jerry, that's a loaded roster. I don't know what's missing. So he thinks, well, I'm doing the great job. Let's just run it back and hope. And that's what their strategy is, it seems to be, on a lot of things. In-game, in an off-season, in a draft, it seems to be hit and hope.
Well, I think it's
kind of like my golf game. I'm swinging and hoping. I don't know where the ball's going, but that's kind of what I'm doing.
Fair enough.
I just think that's the world that the Cowboys live in, because that's what they do. Their whole marketing, everything is built on hope. I mean, I wrote a column about it. They sell hope better than anybody else in the league. And they get you to believe their hope. And then when it doesn't work out, they got a myriad of reasons why, okay, well, this didn't work out, but here's why it'll work out next year. So that's what they do.
Right, absolutely. Hopefully we'll be in Oxnard next summer and there's a real training camp and we can enjoy the California weather and get back to the places that we love visiting so much. And we're going to be out there and going to be talking about, man, I got to tell you what, Leighton Vander Esch, man, it looks like he's really filling all those gaps on that defense. Man, he meshes well with this defense quarter. Whew, I got to tell you, re-signing Tito, man, we didn't think that was going to be a possibility at the end of the season, but, man, he looks like a guy who's ready to ball out. And then the season's going to start, and then it's going to be the same old stuff, right? I mean,
yeah, that's how it feels. Because it's always that way. It's been that way season in and season out for however long it's been. So as we continue, before we let you go, Todd, were you surprised at all that Jerry and Steven seem to just be stunned and what? What do you mean? Why would we get rid of Mike McCarthy? That's never even been a thought in my mind.
No, because if they were to get rid of their coach after one season, that's telling on themselves. You know what I'm saying? They're going to give the guy that they picked to be Jason Garrett's successor all the time in the world that they possibly can have to get it right, because if he fails, they fail. Jason Garrett got 9 years as the head coach. 9 years, 10 years, whatever it was. He got a long time.
9 plus
to prove what he was or he wasn't. And we've heard Jerry say the biggest regret that he has had, or I guess one of the biggest regrets, is only giving Chan Gailey the 2 years. So I'm not surprised that that's their reaction, that they're surprised people are thinking that Mike McCarthy needs to be changed out. I am surprised that they're surprised at the reaction, because it's 4-9. There's not been the incremental improvement that we've talked about, that you can say from week 1 to week 14, they've improved in this area. But next year, look, I hate hot seat stuff. Back in ESPN Dallas, we used to do this stuff all the time and take both sides of the argument. But Mike McCarthy enters next season on the hot seat, doesn't he? Like, if all of this, if Dak is back and they re-sign guys and they have the optimism and they figure out their cap situation and they're a team that we think is going to have all their pieces back healthy, he better win, and he better win early, because this is a guy who's 15, 25, and 1 in his last 41 games. He's 4-9 with the Cowboys. The Packers have done nothing but win their division and advance in the playoffs without him. Next year is a huge year for Mike McCarthy.
Absolutely.
I would think so. I mean, the whole idea was they hired McCarthy, or it was McCarthy or Marvin Lewis, apparently, because they wanted to win now. They wanted an experienced coach that they felt could take them into the playoffs and get them further than that.
This wasn't a rebuilding job.
Right, because otherwise you could have hired somebody else, like one of the hot young names or something, if you thought, well, we need to start over and give it a couple seasons.
Right.
Well, that's how they always
go get Lincoln Riley and let him learn on the job.
All right. Todd Archer.
No, Jacques said something. Hold on. Jacques said something.
No, I just said that's why they always flipped. That's why they always flip the narrative. And you just have to be cognizant that they're flipping the narrative, man.
So you're saying that Jerry and Steven are saying sports is fluid. That's what you're saying.
You're damn right, but they don't have the right to do that. That's what they don't have the right to do.
All right.
I always enjoy this time with you guys.
Oh, it's fantastic. Todd Archer,
right, well,
we appreciate it, man.
Thanks, guys.
As we move forward here with you on this version of the podcast, let's tell you about another one of our great sponsors. That, of course, is the great people with Fitzgerald Law, mainly attorney Chris W. Fitzgerald. Lawyers, during this time period, the cool thing is you don't really have to go to the courthouse, I guess, or to see the judge in person or whatever it is. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are moving to where they handle everything in Zoom type settings, telephonically on the phone, what have you. And that's where Chris W. Fitzgerald can help you, because he has a virtual law practice able to handle a variety of fields and needs almost exclusively online. So don't go into any of these things alone. Give attorney Chris W. Fitzgerald a call, 972-842-4220, or online at chrisfitzgeraldlaw.com. Whether it's a question about a contract or probate, consumer bankruptcy, business transactions. He can handle a variety of things for you that you may have legal questions about. So do it today. Don't hesitate. Don't try to go it on your own. Go to the expert. Go to attorney Chris W. Fitzgerald at chrisfitzgeraldlaw.com. But we like to do this after Cowboys games, and since a couple of days ago they beat Cincinnati, let's do it today. And that, of course, is 4 plays that perhaps you had forgotten about that changed the outcome and told a part of the story of the Cowboys win over the Bengals on Sunday afternoon. So let's start with our first play, and I've got this one with 11:47 left in the first quarter. Dallas, now keep in mind, this is after Cincinnati had fumbled for the first time, and Dallas got the ball in good field position and tried to move the ball down the field, but they're in the red zone. It's at the Cincinnati 12. It's a 3rd and 3, and here is how the play turns out.
Dalton with the pocket collapsing. He's in trouble, and the Bengals are going to wrap him up for a sack. Doesn't happen often. Their first sack in 3 games, just the 14th of the year. But Margus Hunt and Sam Hubbard combined to bring Dalton down.
Watch Lawson, okay? These guys will combine for the sack, but Lawson has a great get-off. Look at the track stance. He's in his track stance. He gets that arm down with a quick arm over, forcing Dalton to step up, and his boys are there to clean it up. Great team pass rush by the Bengals.
Working against Brandon Knight on that left side, in for Cam Irving, who's out.
Yeah, that was one of those where Brandon Knight, not exactly his best work. And I mean, that's, look, 3rd and 3, and that's kind of some of the problems that we see with this team. You have a 3rd and 3, that's a manageable situation for a conversion maybe to keep it alive to perhaps get a touchdown, but I mean, Brandon Knight, Lawson went, Andy Dalton probably had about a second and a half to pass on that, if that.
I don't, y'all know me, man. I don't really complain about the play calls very often because just like this, I think if it works, it's a good play. If it doesn't work, it's a bad play. But I got to tell you, man, given the situation of the game, given how they got that turnover, given that it was 3rd down, I think I tweeted this out before they did it. I would have just run the ball twice, man. Because if you run the ball twice, even though they haven't been a great running team, I mean, I think they were okay at that point in the game. It's still very early in the game. I just think I would have given the ball to Zeke, tried to make it move, because even if you don't get it on 3rd down, if it's close enough, you can get it on 4th down, and you still can kick the field goal if you want to, but you have the 4th down option. You're not going to go for it on 4th and 3 that early in the game if you throw an incompletion. And then when you throw a sack, to me, it was just a little bit demoralizing because, once again, great field position ends up with a field goal.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. And so instead of perhaps an opportunity to get the game to 7-0 right off the bat, you, as you just mentioned, take a loss of 4 on the sack. Now it's 4th and 7. You're kicking the field goal. And as we have seen time and time and time again this year, you completely botch an opportunity in the red zone and you take away 3 points instead of the 7. You're up 3-0. So we'll move forward to our next play, and that takes us to, and I thought this was interesting. I don't know why, because the first 3 plays that I chose were with 11:47 in the first, 11:40 in the second, and 11:41 in the third.
Well, gee.
It's really weird. But this is a second one with 11:40 left in the second quarter. Dallas is at their own 25 with a 3rd and 9. Now, what happens is Amari Cooper false starts, and that makes it 3rd and 14 from the 20. And at that point, we're all going, God, man, this team, they just cannot get out of their own way. But somehow on a 3rd and 14, this is what happens.
3rd and 14, quick toss. Amari Cooper had a step. Cooper's got a first down and much more. Answering your question, Chris, can the Bengals defense finish? They cannot. Amari Cooper pulled down by William Jackson at the 40.
Yeah, I think William Jackson is sitting here, and you give that clean inside release. You pick off your help from the inside with the tight end, and Andy Dalton finds his rhythm and delivers a perfect strike to the dangerous Amari Cooper.
20-yard pickup on the play.
Huge play, because that was one of only, I think, 2 plays of more than 20 yards in the passing game Sunday. And the other thing is, man, I think they converted 4 third downs on that drive.
Yep.
And ultimately, and we talk about this all the time. Matter of fact, I talked to my dude about it in his game, which is, and I've mentioned this to you before, Matt, there's a point in every game where it's there to be won. And if everybody recognizes it, you can make a concerted effort as a team to go win the game right there. And sometimes it's in the first quarter. Sometimes, like yesterday, it's in the second quarter. And they end up, turning that big play into more points in a 3-score lead.
Right, and that became part of the thing. Instead of giving Cincinnati the ball back, as you just said, you go down the field, you're able to convert a couple of shorter third downs, and Dallas at that point, because of that play that kind of ignited the drive, would take a 17-0 lead. So that takes us into the third quarter. 11:41 left in the third quarter, and once again we see the frustrations of you have a 1st and goal to go. You get to a third down situation from the Cincinnati 2, and this is how the failure plays out.
3rd and goal. Bengals bring pressure. Dalton on the sprint out, looking for Cooper. It's incomplete. And the Bengals defense holds on 3rd, and the field goal unit comes on for the Cowboys.
You're going to see the route here, but, it is what it is, and we'll take a look at it. But the more important point is, I want to ask you a question. Okay. I want to ask all Cowboy fans a question. 3 years ago, with Zeke Elliott in the backfield, would you have run the ball one time from the 2-yard line? Or would you run it 3 times?
You'd run it 3 times.
There you go.
Absolutely.
That's just where.
How much of that is Zeke? How much of that is the offensive line or lack of trust in what you have?
I think it's probably a combination of everything, not on one individual, but just a combination of the struggles of this team.
I thought the whole commentary there was interesting because I think that there's some truth to that. And obviously we had seen that. Wasn't it the Baltimore game just a few days ago where they did that and it didn't work?
Yes, I think that's what happens with, I'm just going to say that's a national broadcaster's deal who haven't spent a lot of time covering the Cowboys this year. I don't think Zeke has any problem running short yardage. Now, is he going to break any? Clearly, the answer to that is no. But short yardage, I don't think he really has any problem doing that, man. I think it's their offensive line struggles because it's a bunch of backups in there.
Right.
For the most part, they don't get a lot of push, and they're not a dominant. Then I don't even know why I say dominant. They're just a very average to below average offensive line. If they had their regular offensive line in there, or parts that they would like to have in there, even at this late date, I think they'd have been more apt to run it. If Zach Martin's in the game, then you're probably more apt to run it than if he's not.
Yeah, perhaps. And, of course, they ran on 1st down in that same situation, don't get it. Pass on 2nd, nothing. And then that 3rd down and goal from the 2, one of those plays with basically trips on the right side, and they all run like a short line. They try to run what looked like probably a pick or a rub, and Cincinnati just defended it really well, and Andy Dalton really didn't have anywhere to go, and bang, bang. But again, another situation. You've got a 1st and goal from inside the 5, and you don't score a touchdown, you have to kick a field goal. And at that time, granted, if you're just focusing on the game and you're not thinking about, let's get a better draft pick, but in the game, instead of putting the game away probably right there at 24-7 with the touchdown, you have to kick the field goal, so it's 20-7, which opens the door for Cincinnati to still be in this thing.
Let me put it to you like this, man. If you eliminate the Minnesota game, because they were 3 out of 4 in the red zone in that game, since Dak went out, they are 7 for 23 in the red zone.
Jeez, that's
which is
insane.
Pretty much as bad as you can get. That's what it is. I'm sorry, man. They're 7 and 23 if you count Minnesota. They're 4 and 19 if you don't count Minnesota.
Well, either one of those is horrible.
4 of 19 in the red zone. And while we're moaning and groaning, and we should, that 2 for 4 that we're moaning and groaning about in Cincinnati, that's their second best effort since Dak went out.
That's incredible, man. That is that stat is absolutely unbelievably amazing because of how god-awful atrocious that is when you're talking about red zone scoring. Because red zone scoring, the worst teams in the NFL are generally right around 50% or maybe a little bit lower than that, 47, 48% in any given season. Right. And then every once in a while you may run into a team that just is like the Jets, who are probably god-awful. I'd have to look at it, but they don't score a lot, so I imagine they're really bad. But red zone scoring, I mean, to be that bad, 4 of 19, even 7 of 23, that's not even close to 50%. That is horrible. So that takes us to our final play here in the 4 plays. 8:46 left in the fourth quarter. 1st and 10 for Cincinnati at the Dallas 13. And lo and behold, you knew this was coming.
P-Ryan weaving up the middle. P-Ryan all the way in for the touchdown. There is a flag down, though, as the ball popped out in the end zone. Ball out, flag down. P-Ryan said he was across the goal line before it popped out, and I think that was the call, but we'll see about this flag. 13-yard touchdown if it stands. If you're a Bengal fan.
On the field is a touchdown. Holding, offense number 67. 10-yard penalty, first down.
That's Quentin Spain, the right guard.
Aren't you almost expecting a flag when good things happen?
See, I thought that was interesting for a couple of reasons. One, because that would have made it 20-14 and Cincinnati would have been very much in the game. Instead, it's the hold eliminating the touchdown. It is now 1st and 17 from the Dallas 20. But the other thing about that is the way that they described that. I thought, it's not just Cincinnati fans. You just imagine Dallas fans watching that like, oh, God, what'd Dallas do?
I didn't watch it like that because at the point of when they're talking about the flag, the play is developing as such like it's a running play. It can't really be against the Cowboys. It's got to be against Cincinnati, right?
You hope so. And then I was like, is it defensive hold? Did we do something stupid? But the way they were describing Cincinnati fans, we all know that. A lot of the times with Dallas, when there's a big play, we're always looking around going, okay, there's a flag. What is it on us? Because you just anticipate what happens. Bad teams do what bad teams do. Dallas, and in this instance, Cincinnati, bad teams doing what bad teams do.
And then you start to, I think you're right. Some of that, you just start to anticipate the bad.
That's what it is, because you've seen it multiple times throughout the course of the year. And you see, I mean, hell, half those fumbles, like on the Aldon Smith return, I was like, okay, no flags, no, like, for real? Like, wow, we really actually got one. There wasn't some weird offside. Tank wasn't lined up in the neutral zone or anything like that. Oh, my God. I mean, it's because you just start to, that's what you expect. And you saw it there. And of course, that was a killer for Cincinnati because they would get to a 4th and 7 and not be able to convert. And that obviously allowed Dallas to go down the field and kind of put the thing away. But those are the 4 plays, perhaps some of those you forgot about, that made quite the impact in telling the story of the Cowboys' win over Cincinnati on Sunday. So let's move from the 4 plays into, and we haven't done this in a couple of weeks. Now, we've talked about Christmas movies and some things, so I suppose that kind of suffices. But we like to do the Peep Show, where we talk about some of the things that we've been peeping, shows or movies that we've watched recently. And a lot of you always reach out to us, which is awesome. You can find us on Twitter at McMattRadio, at JJT_journalist, or message us on Instagram, Jam Session Cast. And I got to tell you that we have, and this is, it drives me insane that they do this, but Disney Plus has had The Mandalorian out, and they release 1 episode a week on Fridays. And it drives me nuts. So what we do is we actually watch it. We end up watching it like 4 episodes at a time once a month because we like to have multiple episodes to go through. And so then, like, you'll watch it and you're like, okay, well, now we got to wait a couple of weeks for some episodes to build back up. And then you got to watch the recap because you might have forgotten a little bit about it. But I will tell you this. We've been watching Mandalorian season 2. There's 1 episode left because they do. And that's another thing about this. Make more than 8 episodes. All right?
Yeah.
Let's get to a 13 episode season maybe. That'd be cool. But
why are they just making 8?
I have no idea. I don't know. But my God, The Mandalorian season 2 is phenomenal. It is
phenomenal.
It is absolutely wonderful television. Okay. You know, the Mandalorian last year was nominated for, what was it? The Emmy or whatever for best overall television drama. I mean, it's that good.
Okay, let me ask you this. And don't judge me. I'm just asking. What would be like your 2-sentence synopsis of what the hell The Mandalorian is?
It's Star Wars with an old school lone gunfighter Western feel.
I mean, what part of Star Wars is this? Is this before everybody?
No, this is in the time
After
frame.
everybody?
So if you look at it, there's 9 episodes of the movies. And so this is in the time frame that happens after what was episode 6, Return of the Jedi, in which Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and that gang had defeated Darth Vader and blown up the second Death Star. So this happens a few years after those events take place, where the Empire has been defeated, but before the events of episode 7, where the new Empire, whatever they call it, has taken over power. It's in between those time periods.
Okay.
And it takes place, really, it takes place, it's after that time period, but the realm of the galaxy or the universe or whatever that it takes place in is so far away from those events that some of the planets and people and whatnot haven't even been aware of what was going on. Like, not everybody's aware that there is a Luke Skywalker or anything. But what's cool is that in season 2 of The Mandalorian, they've really upped the story and have started to tie in some of those things that we're familiar with. The thing about Star Wars, if you're really, really, really into Star Wars, then you watch all the cartoons and you have read the stories, and it's not just about the 9 episodic movies or Rogue One or what have you. There's all these other stories. And so some of the characters that are in The Mandalorian are in some of those stories that you got to be like a gung-ho Star Wars nerd to even know who they are. And I'm not that into it. Like, I love the movies, but I don't go out and read the stories in between or watch the cartoon movies or any of that type of thing. But it's interesting. And so The Mandalorian, man, is just so well done. It's the way that they put it together. The storyline is really good. They introduced us to a Jedi that I'd never heard of before. And I went and looked up the character, and sure enough, she's been around the Star Wars universe for like 15 years or something. I was like, oh, okay. Well, who knew? And you have that, and just the fights, the scenes. It's realistic. It's really well done. It's very, very well directed. And the storyline is really interesting and captivates you to want to continue watching it and binge it.
All right.
And I got to
try, because I've got, I just haven't. I'm not a big Star Wars guy,
right?
Although I watched one of them, I thought it was great. I don't know why I didn't watch the rest of them. So I just haven't been moved to watch it, even though I hear good things about it.
Right. Yeah, it's really, really well done.
You got to know all the inside jokes for it to make sense to you, though.
No, I don't think so, because really a lot of it is standalone. Like I said, I mean, there's some references every once in a while to some of the things that you saw. Obviously, the most recent trilogy hasn't happened yet in this time period. So the 4 or 5 movies that have come out recently don't even matter. And so the original 3, if you've seen those that came out in the 80s and late in 77, the episodes 4, 5, and 6, they make some references to things that happen in those movies, but it's really, if you've never seen Star Wars, you could jump in on this and be fine.
Oh, okay. Well, that's another what do you call it? Checking the plus side for why to check it out.
Yeah, and season 2, I think, is better than season 1. Like, they have upped the game on this thing, man. Now, you do have to be into the sci-fi world of what Star Wars was all about originally. Like, if that just has no appeal to you, I mean, this is what that is. So you have to have some appeal to the space travel and different planets and all that type of thing.
No. I don't have a problem with that. I just, I don't know, for whatever reason, I just never got into Star Wars.
But, man, it is really, really good. It's really good. I love this show. And that's why I just wish it was more than 8 episodes, because the episode that comes out on Friday is the season finale. And then you got to wait however long, another 11 months or whatever it'll be.
Now, that's a long time to be waiting, man.
I know, for 8 episodes? Like, come on. We need more than 8. You're Disney. You're rich as hell. Make more. And so from that, the other thing, we watched this last night. And that is, it was the number 1 movie on Netflix the last couple of days. Like in the top 10, it's the number 1 thing on Netflix. It's the Jessica Chastain, the action movie Ava.
Yeah, baby.
Have you seen that?
Come on, man. Yeah, I watched
See,
it.
I'm curious what you think about it because it has Colin Farrell in it. It has John Malkovich, who I love him, man. He is so
he
good.
Not a cool, sinister dude? And he wasn't even being sinister, so to speak, this time.
But I thought what they tried to do, in a sense, was make a female John Wick, and it just did not get to that level for me.
Let me see. I'll probably co-sign on that. It was all right.
Yeah, it was just all right.
Yeah, but I think your standard is probably higher than mine because you're a thespian. And my standard is more like, yeah, it was some gratuitous silliness, but it was okay because they blew up a lot of stuff. They killed a lot of stuff. You know, you see a lot more women doing these roles now, but it's still interesting to see a woman doing the super badass kill everybody role. My problem, however, is that I watched Ava. And I was doing some work all the time I was doing this, man. And then I watched this show called Peppermint. With
Jennifer Garner,
Now that one I thought was stupid. Although I watched it. And then I watched another one with like a Hispanic superhero. And so
Colombiana?
No, because that one's borderline stupid too. This was something else.
All right.
See, Jennifer Garner was stupid because, okay, at a certain point, the other people are paid assassins and hitmen too.
Right.
And they should be able to shoot you and kill you.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, like, just like you're killing everybody, the other trained assassins and hitmen, when they have guns and time, they too should be able to off you. And the other show I watched was very similar like this, and I was like, okay, I mean, come on. You should be gone by now. That's like when you're a little kid and you go, I shot you. No, you didn't. It went through my armpit and it just missed me. I'm like, no, it didn't. I was point blank range. No, I had the invisible bulletproof vest on. Don't you see it ricocheted off right there?
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit of what was going on in those movies.
Yeah, my thing with Ava is that it was so predictable. You knew what was going to happen. You knew what characters were going to die. And there was a little bit too, when you're making a movie like that, just go the John Wick route and make it nonstop action, killing people, blowing stuff up, and fights. I don't give a rat's ass that your mom hurt your feelings and you left or whatever. I don't care. And so they tried to insert a little bit too much drama for me and not enough action. And like, for instance, when John Malkovich went over to Colin Farrell's house, we all knew how that was going to go down. Like, you just, like, I guarantee, I said it out loud. I was like, well, so much for this. Sure enough, that's what happened. And I kept thinking I wanted something, like, there's a scene where she's sitting there, and I thought this was interesting too. For a woman who is being hunted, she sure sat next to a lot of windows. And that didn't make any sense to me. I was like, nobody, like, you have to figure they know that what city you're in. And yet, and they would probably know where your mom lives, and you're sitting next to a window playing cards with your mom. I wanted her, like, I kept waiting, like, please let her mom's head explode. Just like, and then you get mad and you're angry and like, oh God, I shouldn't have come home and sat next to this window. I don't know. I just thought for a high-level assassin that she put herself in situations where other high-level assassins that were hunting her would easily have been able to kill her.
Right. And then I think the whole Colin Farrell climactic scene, that ended the way you figured it would end.
Right.
And again, now, I want y'all to be the movies were fine to me. They provided, an hour and a half of entertainment while I was doing something else. But in general, Matt, and I'm curious to see if you ride with this. This is why I prefer episodic shows as opposed to movies anymore, because the star of the movie never dies. And so you go into the show knowing that unless it's a 1% movie, the star of the movie is not going to die.
Right.
And so when you go in knowing that, it can only be so amusing because there's no suspense there. You know how it's going down. And that's why I prefer episodic shows and TV, because then they really will kill some people that you don't expect to die.
Yeah, and it's gotten to a point with some of these movies, and I think that we all will agree on this. In certain situations, why don't they shoot people in the head? I've never, like, shoot them in the head. Like, you shoot them in the stomach and then you walk away like, oh my God, they're still alive. Shoot them in the head. And then there's this. When she was fighting Colin Farrell, and I don't want to ruin the movie if you haven't seen it, so I won't tell you how it plays out. But I thought one thing. Why in those situations do you never kick the guy in the balls, and why don't they punch the girl in the boobs?
Yeah, I always have the kick in the ball thought.
Like I think that, like I said, we were watching that last night. I was like, why doesn't he punch her in the boobs or in the groin? Like, that hurts a chick too. You know, like, punch her in the boob as hard as you can. Instead, he's trying to choke her, like flip her over or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I know it's choreographed. I'm just saying in a real fight, I don't know if it'd go down like that.
No, I feel you on that, man. I feel you on that.
So that was it. But Ava, it's an hour and a half. It's harmless. It's definitely a good movie to have on if you're doing something else. That way you can ignore the slow parts, which are dumb, and just watch the fighting and the killing and stuff. That's my review. I don't know if I'd give it a thumbs up or half a thumb up or what I would give to it, but that's how it is. All right, so that is exciting. A lovely trip there. A look at the Peep Show, some of the things that we've been enjoying here over the last few days. All right, happy to welcome in our next guest here to have a conversation about what the tape says. Did the Cowboys really massively improve on Sunday against Cincinnati? We welcome in from the Dallas Morning News, where you can read his work, NFL film analyst John Owning. So I guess that is the question. Let's start with John. Is a team that we have talked about week in and week out that has just underachieved all of a sudden beats another bad team in Cincinnati by 23 points. Did they show anything on film that they did better, or is it just, well, you played Cincinnati?
Honestly, I think a lot of it was just playing Cincinnati. I mean, they were gifted those 3 turnovers in the first half, which really turned the tide. The defense actually, in my opinion, wasn't even really playing that well in the first half. They allowed, I think, 7 of 8 third downs to get converted in the first half. 3 of the Cincinnati's first 4 possessions went in the Cowboys territory. The defense was really struggling in that first half, but they did a lot better job in that second half, I will say. When Brandon Allen kind of got that foot injury, he couldn't really drive on passes anymore, and it really hindered Cincinnati's passing game. And the Cowboys did a much better job in the second half of being sound with their run sets. They were doing a much better job of bottling up that Cincinnati rushing attack. And without that rushing attack and Brandon Allen unable to really be able to be accurate consistently with that foot injury in the second half, they struggled to move the ball, and it made the Cowboys look a lot better than they were. I don't think they made any substantial improvements necessarily. I just think the Bengals team was a team that matched up really well for what the Cowboys do and don't do well. And I think you saw that manifest itself on Sunday.
I think that's a really good way to say it. I think sometimes we really forget that despite all the schemes and stuff, a lot of time it comes down to a matchup issue. Like, you could look at the Washington games and go, that defensive line against the Cowboys offensive line, it's probably not a lot of hope for the Cowboys. When you look at Baltimore, you go, that running game against their run defense, not a lot of hope. And I look at it the same way this week. San Francisco's really good at running the ball. I don't know why they'd ever throw a pass this week. 3rd and 12, I'd be running the ball.
Exactly. It's not about the X's and O's. It's the Jimmies and the Joes, as Bill Walsh used to say.
There you go. But the guys I was interested in technically how you thought they did was, I got to tell you, man, I see Rashard Robinson and Savion Walker in the starting lineup. I go, this is probably the worst starting tandem in the NFL. But they held up well for whatever reason against Cincinnati. What did the tape show you?
The tape showed me a couple guys that probably shouldn't be playing all that often. I mean, they were really loose with their coverage. They weren't very good, to be honest. Like I said, a lot of it was just that Brandon Allen couldn't be very accurate in that second half, because when he had that foot issue, he just really couldn't drive on balls, and you saw things sail over receivers' heads. You know, they were very inaccurate balls, especially like Rashard Robinson. He competes really well, but he's so loose with his coverage. He plays so far off that he gives up a lot of easy stuff. And then down the field, he's just not physical enough with receivers at the catch point to really be able to battle. He's still really, really skinny, which is a problem of his when he was coming out of LSU a couple years ago. He was really thin, didn't really play physically very well. And I see that's still an issue with the Cowboys. Savion Smith, he's trying out there. he's definitely trying out there. He tries to be physical. You could tell that he's trying to do the things right. He doesn't make mental mistakes as much as Rashard Robinson, which is good. You don't see the miscommunications. He's typically in his area where he should be most times, but he just doesn't really have the athleticism to stick with receivers. He's really poor matching receivers coming out of their breaks. He'll give up a lot of separation there, and that's when you see a lot of catches that he allowed come from. But, I mean, two guys that shouldn't be on the roster, the fact that you can even play competent pass defense with them, I would say you got to be happy with the way they perform given expectations. I mean, they're definitely not somebody that you hope plays a lot in the future when everybody's healthy, but for the situation that they were in, I think they did an admirable job given their talent level.
Okay, let me ask you about one more guy as I interrupt, Matt. This guy, and see, we were going to ask you about him last week, and I don't want to forget about him because he just popped in my head. And people got on me, and I was like, what are you talking about? I said Xavier Woods, to me, your boy, has regressed. What do you mean he's regressed? He was never that good. And I used out my Madden cliche, which is if you're a 75 player on Madden and now you're a 68 player, seems to me you've regressed. What are your thoughts on Xavier Woods?
Definitely. I think you're definitely correct that he's regressed this year. He has not. The area where he has struggled a lot in is against the run and matching with his run fits. And this Nolan run defensive system, there's a lot more stress on the safeties to come forward from depth and fill their run fits, and he's just really struggled in that area. He hasn't been able to be uniform in his run fits, and even when he does, he hasn't been secure with his tackling ability. He doesn't really take on blocks well, all of those things. And then in coverages, he's had a lot of issues too, a lot more issues than you've seen in the past. Nolan has been using him a lot more in the box than he was used in the past. He was used a lot more as a kind of deep free safety center field, more like on 60% of his plays in the past, and now he's more playing like 65% in the box and then like another 35% deep. And he has not been as consistent in his coverage ability there. He hasn't been passing off receivers in zone. He hasn't been relating to his zones as well as he has in the past. I still think the best thing he does is when he plays in those center field roles where he can be the topper and really be the last line of defense for your defense in those cover 1 and cover 3 defenses. I really thought that coming into this season that putting Woods in different spots, allowing him to disguise his coverages more would put him in position to make more plays. But it seems that it's only kind of confused him like many of the secondary defensive backs, and he's just not comfortable with the role that he's in, and he hasn't been nearly as effective this year. You say he went from a 75 to a 68. I would even say he went from like a 75 to like a 62, 60. He has not been the consistent safety that you really need, the Cowboys need in this defense. He hasn't been able to provide that. And it's really been disappointing for somebody entering a free agent year where coming in, I thought there was no reason the Cowboys would let him walk after this year. But now, given the way he's played in this defensive system, depending on who the Cowboys, what they do at defensive coordinator after this year, I'm really wondering if they're going to even try to bring him back.
Man, that's something else. Now, I got to tell you, usually on Madden, when that happens, look, I'm going to be honest with you. If you're in the yellow, which is 75 or lower, I just cut you. I mean, I don't have guys on my Madden team.
You're ruthless, man.
I'm just saying, like, once you turn 31 or older and you drop down, especially in the – why am I having a guy on my team in the 60s? Come on. Jeez. But, I'm kind of curious because this has been a problem, and it's really been a problem ever since Dak got hurt, but we saw it again a couple of times on Sunday against the crappy Bengals, and that was this red zone offense for the Cowboys and the struggles that they have. And they had a first and goal to go situation where they had to kick a field goal. They had another one, I think, on that first drive after the first fumble where they got into the red zone and then the drive just stalls out. What do you see on tape that is causing these problems when they get into the red zone where the offense just kind of seems to stall out completely?
I don't think Andy Dalton has been making really the proper, quick, decisive decisions. He kind of gets a little frantic in the pocket a little bit in those tight quarters in those goal line and red zone situations where there's a lot of people around the line of scrimmage, you don't really know where the blitz, if there's a blitz coming, you don't really know where it's coming because there's so many defenders around the line of scrimmage. So it causes him to get kind of frantic, and that makes him a step slow with his reads. And when you're a step slow with your reads in the red zone, I think it creates a lot of issues. And another thing is the Cowboys just really haven't been scheming people wide open like they have at different times this season. I think that teams are getting kind of a hold on their play action game in the red zone, and it's not allowing themselves to create those open running receivers that make really easy scoring opportunities in those red zone situations. And when they're not getting open quickly, you need quick, decisive decisions from the quarterback, and that hasn't been there. So I think when you combine those two things, it's just causing the Cowboys to really struggle in those red zone areas right now.
Yeah,
that's where some players, and when Dak was there, his ability to use his feet to create more time, his ability to do those things, make quick, decisive decisions, really boosted the Cowboys' ability in the red zone because you're creating your own scoring opportunities regardless of the play call on that. Andy Dalton, if you're not able to scheme the play open immediately, he's not really having that much success, and he's probably not going to have that much success.
And I think the other thing is they can't run the ball. Like, when you can run the ball down there, you really create the dual threat problem for the defense, but they can't really run the ball. I mean, 3 times at the goal line, when was it, last week against Baltimore, got you nothing. And so I think taking that away also has made them ineffective at the red zone because it's pretty much made them one-dimensional down there.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a reason why teams haven't been really biting on their run action as much as because they're fine defending the run on their way to the quarterback right now because of Dallas's issues blocking up front. I mean, the Cowboys opposing defensive linemen have way too easy of a job of getting off blocks against the Cowboys' current iteration of the offensive line, which you kind of expect given all the injuries that they've had up front, but it still hurts when you get down into the red zone and it makes things more difficult, like you were saying.
So everybody looks ahead, and one of the things we talked about was beating Cincinnati hurts the greater good because now I think Dallas is either 6th or 7th in draft positioning, and they would have been 3rd had they lost that game. But when you look at this team, there's obviously a lot of holes, but is there a position group that you look at that you think needs the most help?
No, I think it's 2. It's definitely defensive tackle and cornerback, I would say. Cornerback is mostly due to the fact that you only have basically Trevon Diggs and Anthony Brown under contract going into next year. You definitely need to improve the depth and the talent at the top of that position. And then defensive tackle is I think defensive tackle is the thread that really hurts every level of the Cowboys defense. I mean, against the run, it makes life extremely difficult on the linebackers because our defensive tackles the Cowboys defensive tackles aren't gap sound. They don't occupy blocks. They get displaced way too easily. And then against the pass, they don't generate any semblance of any pass rush whatsoever. I mean, the Cowboys probably have the worst pass rushing group of defensive tackles that I've seen in the last 5 years. I mean, it's unbelievable how little pressure, even with Tyrone Crawford getting 2 really garbage time sacks against Cincinnati, the Cowboys defensive tackle still ranked abysmally when you compare to other teams in terms of pass rush impact from the interior defensive line. Just really struggling there. So their inability against the run and the pass really hampers this defense. And I think if you can get, a definitive nose tackle that can defend the run on base downs, and then you can find someone who can give you a little bit more pressure as a pass rusher on those 3rd down nickel situations, I think both of those situations would be beneficial for the Cowboys.
Okay, I got this last question for you, man, based on what you just said. Who has this scheme helped defensively?
Aldon Smith, maybe? Definitely not anybody that was on the team last year. Maybe Dorrance Armstrong because he's getting more run because they're playing him as that Sam linebacker when they run those 4-3 underfronts with a 5-man surface on the line of scrimmage. So maybe it's helping him, but it's definitely not helping the linebackers. It's definitely not helping the defensive tackles. Definitely not helping the defensive ends. I mean, I've never really thought about it the way that you said it, but now that I think about it, I can't really think of a single defender who plays consistently who's been really boosted by this scheme, which I think says a lot.
That's what I'm saying, and that's what you made me think. Like, you spent a chunk of time talking about, well, Xavier Woods is playing in the box, and it's hard for him to come up and make these run fits at safety. Okay, and then the linebackers, if I'm not mistaken, they're being more asked to take on blockers and shed them, and then go make play. Well, that ain't really what they do. And then you've had your defensive end standing up. I'm just like, I don't see I don't know how you could look at this scheme as a coach, put your players in it, watch them fail, and be like, yeah, this is a good scheme. I think I'd like to have Mike Nolan back.
This reminds me of that year, when Bill Parcells came in and he ran that 4-3 for the initial year.
Yeah.
This seems like what would have happened if he would have made the immediate switch to 3-4. Because the Cowboys are playing a defense where their personnel just does not match up, and they're kind of like ham-fisting it in, trying to pound the square block into a round hole, and it just hasn't worked all season.
I see, that's why Mike McCarthy gets on my nerves. Because he said he wasn't going to do that with the offense. He sat up there and did it with the defense. And that's part of the reason why they've looked like shit all year.
Yep. 100%.
It's very true. So who knows? 3 games left, and we'll see. I don't think anybody expects anything differently. And if it was just the Bengals that we saw, and that's part of the reason of the great matchup, I think we all kind of expect, maybe Philadelphia, who knows? But if Jalen Hurts is going to play that way, you kind of expect you close it out on a 3-game losing streak and see, can you wind up in the top 5 of the draft, and we'll get excited in April.
Yep. I mean, the Dallas Morning News already, tells you what kind of year they have. The Dallas Morning News is already having me start on my draft stuff. I'm already writing about the draft in December.
Good. I like it. That's what I'm
like
excited
it too.
about.
It's just funny. This is the earliest I've ever had to do. This is the earliest I've ever done in my career. It's
amazing.
Hilarious to me.
All right. John Owning, as always, man, we appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later. Let's tell you yet again about one of our sponsors. And by the way, if you're listening and you own a local business and are interested in sponsoring us and helping us to continue to grow this thing, we'd love to hear from you. We have some packages available. We can work with you to find something that works for you and your company. Just shoot me an email, matt@jamsessionpodcast.com, and we will touch base and see if we can bring you on, perhaps, and help your business as you help us. But we've been doing this with Beer Geek Shop in downtown Rockwall for forever. They were a big sponsor of ours, an advertiser on the radio show. They've moved with us to the podcast. Absolutely love what these guys do. I know many of you have gone out to Rockwall and supported them. It's a local family-owned business. I love talking about them because they're good people, and I love going there. Beer Geek Shop is in downtown Rockwall, right off the square. Over 400 beers from all across the world. Everything in the store is available in singles.
That's huge.
It is huge. All the beers that we try, you can get at Beer Geek Shop in downtown Rockwall. And I'll tell you this, and this is true, and I won't mention the store names. I'm sure you guys can figure it out. There are a variety of other stores that you may live closer to that you're like, oh, I'll just go here and get it. I'm going to tell you this right now. A lot of those other stores do not have near the variety that Beer Geek Shop does. And most of those other stores, some of them I know for a fact, if you try to break off a can out of a 6-pack, they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I just want to try the one. They're like, you can't do that. At Beer Geek Shop, everything is available in singles, all of them. Every beer, when you walk in there, you can get just one of, or 4 of, or 10 of, however you want to pitch it together. And I absolutely love that as somebody who loves trying craft beer. And at Beer Geek Shop, they have the Jam Session 6-pack. 3 of my beers, 3 of Jacques' beers, 6 craft beers, all from the local area, $22.50. That is a Christmas gift right there.
No, that's a legitimate good deal right there. And I love Beer Geeks, man. And if you're not sure because you're new to craft beer, just go ask them, hey, throw some beers together for me. This is the kind of style I like, the kind of flavor I like. These are the tastes I like. And Deidre's great at mixing and matching and giving you something to try.
Indeed. So get out there, support them. Jason and Deidre, they are wonderful people, local, family-owned, and they will get you taken care of. You can check out their inventory, and you know what? Even place an order to go pick up online at beergeekshop.com. Other action around the NFL this week. It was an interesting weekend in the NFL. It concluded last night with a wild game between Baltimore and Cleveland that ended up turning into, I guess, Poopgate, where Lamar Jackson runs off the field and there's that video of him running through the tunnel, and it looked like he was going to have to go explode, it looked like to me. And then he comes back out and on 4th down throws a touchdown. I mean, what a phenomenal game that was between him and Baker Mayfield and those 2 AFC North rivals.
No, it was a great game, man. It was everything you want in a football game. Even though the score was 47-42, there was some defense there. There was some spectacular plays. The quarterback play was good with Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson. And now everybody says he was having cramps because he needed an IV.
Right.
But either way, it was just weird to watch him sprint off the field and then sprint back just in time to save the day. And then when he throws that touchdown, man, you're like, oh, my God, how wild is that? Right off the bench. I mean, right out of the locker room onto the field, you throw this 42-yard touchdown pass when you haven't really done anything as a passer all game. Baker drives him right down the field, and then Lamar goes and takes him down long enough for the NFL's best kicker to win it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wild one. The Ravens 8-5, the Browns 9-4. We saw some interesting games this week, man, because we saw the night before the Buffalo Bills at home hand the Steelers their second consecutive loss. And I think the Bills, if you didn't know, are showing that is not a team that's going to be an easy out in the playoffs by any sense of the imagination. They're 10-3. They can do it to you in a variety of ways. They've got a solid defense. They've got a young playmaking quarterback that can beat you with his legs or his arm. They've got some weapons in Buffalo. I don't know that they're going to be able to do it to Kansas City, but who knows, man? Buffalo is one of those teams that I would not be surprised. It wouldn't just blow my mind if somehow they win the AFC.
Now, they've got a couple things working for them that I just had a lot of doubts about. Now, doubts is different than when I go, that'll never work. But I just believe you got to show me, man. It's not my job to believe and have hope, faith, and optimism that's going to work out. So when it's Stephon Diggs and you trade for him, they got a number one receiver. No, they don't. He ain't never been a number one. Let's go see if he can be a number one. Lots of guys have thought they were number ones. They go somewhere else and they go, oh, you're not a number one. Well, he's a number one. I mean, he's gone to Buffalo, and he's let everybody else fit in. Because now you got to treat him like a number one, which means your number two is better because he's now getting the second cornerback. It means a guy like Cole Beasley's even better because now he's getting your third or your fourth corner. And it all fits together. But the biggest thing is that quarterback's a star. And, I mean, I think everybody had their doubts about whether he could emerge and develop.
Right.
Because he was such a weird-looking player coming out of college. Now, this is a thing that I don't want to hear, Matt. Well, whoever passed on him, they should have taken Josh Allen. No, because it's clear he's been developed in Buffalo. Just because you had taken him don't mean you would have been developing him the way the Bills and Brian Daboll have developed him as a quarterback.
Right.
And taught him to play the position and figured out how to put an offense around him that lets him succeed. And I'm just telling you, put that guy in Cleveland with the stuff Baker Mayfield's been through. You think he'd be this good right now?
Well, I mean, right. You could say if the Jets had taken him instead of Sam Darnold, I think you'd be sitting here. They'd be moving on from him, much like the Jets are going to be drafting Trevor Lawrence and moving on from Sam Darnold.
No, I think that's exactly right. And so I think Buffalo's done a tremendous job of developing him, and now they're reaping the rewards because they got a big-time young quarterback, and they got a smart organization, man, because those are the cats who came from from Carolina, the coach and the GM, so they work together good. They know exactly what they want in an offense and a team. Mm-hmm. And think about it. They're building around him the way they built around Cam, except they're giving him some better weapons. I think they learned from that mistakes.
They did, and we shall see in the very all of a sudden crowded top of the AFC with 3 weeks to go how that will play out now that Pittsburgh has lost another game. And it looks like, as I think most of us kind of figured this way, now obviously 3 games left, who knows, but Kansas City at 12-1, most likely you got to go through Arrowhead to get to the Super Bowl this year. Pittsburgh sitting there right behind them, and then Buffalo at 10-3, and then the slew of 9-4 teams, including Cleveland, Tennessee, and Indianapolis. The interesting thing that I saw in the NFC, there were 2 of them this week, and they both involved 2 NFC East teams. One, Washington is for real, I think, half, because their defense has continued to improve throughout the course of the season, is nastier than it's ever been. They had, I believe it was 2 defensive touchdowns on Sunday against San Francisco. They had an interception, they had 2 fumble recoveries, and they had 4 sacks. Chase Young was a man amongst boys. And all of a sudden, Washington has won 4 in a row. They're 6-7. And that defense, as I said, has gotten to a point now where you look at that, and that is a team, if Alex Smith in the offense can just not turn it over, Washington's defense has started to become good enough to win it some games.
Well, that's exactly what Alex Smith does. He doesn't turn the ball over. And that's he does exactly what he's supposed to do. If we have to punt, that's fine. I'll wait for the defense to get us the ball back. And that defensive line allows them to match up with anybody, man. And, I think it's always cool when you have a thought, which is, hey, let's spend this draft capital on the defensive line. And you hit on all those guys, and then you get to reap the benefits of what you hit on. And so, yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about.
Fair enough. So the other one that I thought was interesting was the Eagles making the change to Jalen Hurts, and they beat New Orleans 24-21. The Eagles now 4-8-1. I don't know that means they're going to have a big change at quarterback, but Jalen Hurts did enough. He didn't turn it over, which is a way better start than whatever we've seen from Carson Wentz. And Jalen Hurts, and this is what he did at Alabama, and this is what Lamar Jackson is so dangerous at. He forces you to have to defend something you're not used to defending, which is a quarterback that can run like a running back. Jalen Hurts had 18 attempts for 106 yards against the Saints while also throwing it 30 times.
Dude, he was terrific, man. And he played a lot. He embraced who he is as a player, which is kind of like what Lamar Jackson does. Quit tripping on how many yards of passing I have and the pass attempts, all this. Focus on my total yards as a player and how many points did we score as an offense. And, he did well. And clearly, he brought some juice to that team, man, because they played with a lot more excitement on offense than they had been in a minute.
Yes, they have. And again, I don't know what it means for the future. That's one of those things you're going to have to continue to do it, and maybe there'll be a debate in the offseason. Who knows? But Jalen Hurts at least showed some poise. He showed what anybody who watched him play at Alabama and then for a year at OU is well aware of. That dude is a leader, and that dude has the poise of a champion to win. Now, can he take over for Carson Wentz? Would they make that move? I have no idea how this is going to play out.
Oh, check this out, man. See, you said something very significant there. You said that guy's a leader. He has the poise of a champion, all this stuff. What's the one thing we've heard about Carson Wentz from the beginning? He's not that guy. He's rubbed some people the wrong way. He's not that guy. He doesn't have all those leadership intangibles. And me and Matt, have tried to tell y'all, some of y'all, for a long time that stuff matters. Which is why we always say, hey, the Cowboys ride with Dak. It's a different thing when your players all galvanized behind a single dude. Did you see the clip before the Bills game where Josh Allen talks to his team?
No, I didn't see that. No.
See, what happened before the game is what's his name? Juju Schuster is dancing on the Bills logo. We all know that's a football sin. But he's dancing on the logo and putting it on his Instagram or whatever.
Right.
Well, here to me was the interesting part. The Buffalo offense, starting offense, is about to trot onto the field for pregame warm-ups.
Right.
And Josh Allen is at the head looking back. He's like at the front with his back to the stadium entrance, and the guys are in front of him. Just those other 10 guys, just the starters. And you hear Stephon Diggs going, 17, what you got for us? 17, what you got for us? Okay, that's Stephon Diggs, your diva receiver, deferring to the quarterback. Then if somebody else chimes in, yeah, what's up? And Josh Allen walks forward and says, let them do all their dancing, and he cusses a little bit. We're going to get it done on the field. Then they go, yeah, 17, and then they run out there. Dude, they ain't doing that for Carson Wentz.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah, no.
Josh Allen has taken over that team. They respect him. They ride with him, and so they play different for him. Same thing in Dallas with Dak. And when your quarterback is not that guy, it's just hard to win. You think they do that for Kurt, what's his name in Minnesota?
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. I was thinking nephew, but it's Cousins.
Kirk nephew.
That was a joke, man.
I know, and I liked it. Kirk nephew.
You think they do that for Kirk Cousins?
No. Maybe for Kirk nephew they would.
They're not riding for him like that.
Awesome.
And you can't buy it. You can't make it. It's just a thing that happens.
Yeah.
And when you got it, it is so powerful. And when you don't, it's so noticeable.
It is indeed. And so when you look at the grand scape of the NFL, like I said, those are the couple of things that kind of jumped out at me from this week. this playoff picture, and both conferences are kind of the same way. I mean, we know how it is. The top of the AFC is Kansas City, Pittsburgh, and Buffalo. You've got Tennessee, Cleveland, and the Colts are battling with the Dolphins and the Ravens for the final 4 playoff spots. The NFC is also interesting because New Orleans, and I don't know what happened, if they just overlooked Philadelphia, an off week, whatever. They obviously looked extraordinarily vulnerable. You've got Green Bay and New Orleans at 10-3 each. Green Bay has already clinched their division. The Rams have won a couple in a row. They're 9-4. Seattle's 9-4. Tampa's 8-5, and Arizona's 7-6. And that's what's so wild is because Washington, Minnesota, and the Bears, yeah, they're 6-7, but they're obviously all still in contention for a playoff spot. I keep thinking that the NFC is Green Bay or the Saints. And I know it's weird. I know they're 9-4, but the Rams, the Rams are one of those teams I feel like could even win their division, which they may, and lose in the first round of the playoffs. Like, oh, well, you know, who really thought anything about the Rams?
That's because you don't respect their quarterback.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. There's a lot of truth to that.
I mean, you respect probably every other aspect of the game, but you just got no respect for the quarterback. And so Jared Goff is not a guy you mind playing. Now, maybe he plays his butt off and you lose, but ain't nobody scared. Ain't nobody like, oh, my God, we got Jared Goff in the first round of the playoffs. I think the one thing you want to look out for when it comes to playoffs, and I heard this, I heard Peter King talk about this the other day, and I believe it's 100% true.
Right.
Which is, and I've said this myself, Matt, like there's not really a home field advantage this year. There's no fans. All you have to do is travel. But there's no fans whipping everybody up into a frenzy. Mm-hmm. But check this out, dog. Don't nobody want to go play in the frozen tundra in January, whether there's fans there or not, because you don't want to deal with the elements. And so to me, that's the true home field advantage in the playoffs. It's not so much the crowd and whatever, it's the elements. So Green Bay in the middle of January, you think Tampa wants to go there?
No.
Any of these other warm weather teams, Arizona, none of them, man. And so to me, Green Bay trying like hell to get home field advantage in the playoffs is a big deal. Much bigger than pretty much just about anybody else.
Right, and right now they are the 1 seed after New Orleans lost, so we'll see how that plays out. But that is a look at some of the action from around the NFL. Yes.
I got to tell you this one last thing, man.
Please do.
I had a friend of mine who's a Saints fan, and he had the nerve, man, as my mama would say, to fix his lips to talk about how the Saints lost and we're just trash and we're not very good. And I said, didn't y'all just win 9 in a row? Shut up. That's what I told him to his face.
Fair enough, man. Those Saints fans, I tell you what, for a team that hadn't won a Super Bowl in 10 years and they act like every year that they are the Super Bowl champion is very interesting to me. I mean, at least, and you know what? Look, you can scream and yell, what about Cowboys? I haven't done anything in 25 years. But again, we're not talking about that. We're talking about you.
And you. Yeah, you.
That's how it is. Thanks for listening to the Jam Session Podcast. Find us on Instagram at Jam Session Cast. We're also available on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe today by searching Jam Session Podcast. And of course, on Twitter at McMattRadio at JJT_journalist. Thanks to Purple Elephant Music for the music you hear at the end and beginning of each episode. He's the radio and TV star, the sexy Jean-Jacques Taylor, and I'm just a guy, Matt McLaren. Please tell a friend. If you like what we do, tell them, and perhaps they will enjoy it as well. And remember to subscribe, rate, and review. And we'll catch you next time on the Jam Session Podcast, available everywhere you listen to podcasts.